Are you evil? Am I evil? Are human beings evil from day one when they are born? This question has been the most important question of my life. Why? Because the moment I realized that we are not bad, fundamentally flawed, but instead we are good, was when I decided I wanted to live a life, a simple life, modest life, to live a life doing good. My name is Kristiina Hyryläinen. I'm a 76-year-old housewife living in Finland. I live in a little village inhabited by my relations in a house that was built by my late husband, Matti. I feel honored and grateful that I may participate in this Congress. The reason I'm speaking to you today is that I think my life is a very good example of what this Congress is all about. Basic income in reality. I have had the fortune to live my life as if me and my husband, Matti, had received basic income. In a way, our life was like a private 40-year basic income pilot. How and why we had the possibility to live our lives the way we did, I'll tell you in a while, but first I want to tell you why I always as a child pondered the question I started with. Are human beings evil or good? As a child, I lived in a religious atmosphere. My grandfather, we lived in the same house, was very religious. In his religion, Christian Lutheran, there is a strong belief that humans are evil and sinful when they are born. I was taught this too. Later on, when going deeper into the foundations of religion, I came to think differently. I realized that it's only a belief. It's not true that human beings are evil, fundamentally flawed. What a burden was lifted off my shoulders. It's easy. Doing good makes you good. We all are good. I'm good. But now, back to the story of my life and how it started. The most significant single event of my life when I met my husband Matti. I met him at the Finnish patent office where we both worked some 50 years ago. He was a research engineer and I was the secretary of the CEO. He was a warm-hearted, intelligent and creative man. I was particularly impressed that he had been a single parent for his 9-year-old son for years, which was very exceptional those days in Finland. He was handy. He had renovated his flat, made a canoe for his son, and was making a camera to take old-fashioned photos. He also had an old Renault 4 French car, which I loved. Later on, it served well also to carry building materials and animals. Matti had a purpose for his life, to write a theory for democratic economy. I wanted to support him to do my share of our project. We soon understood that we could not live our lives as we wanted if we stayed in Helsinki. So we gave up our rather well-paying jobs and moved to the countryside. to a little village where I had been living as a child with my relatives. So what was our life like? As I told you, we lived our life as if we received basic income, so our life was very simple. We lived in a small house where we had to pump our water from our well with a hand pump. We had to carry our drinking water from the neighbor's house. No warm water, heating with wood, no TV for 5 years. We used to joke that the fireplace was our color TV. We had goats and ducks and bees and an ecological garden. We picked berries and mushrooms. We went fishing. Matti wrote 2 books about democratic economy. Basic income is an integral part of that theory. He had come across the idea of basic income as early as in 1970s. He published his first book in 1987. Everyone knows now what basic income is, but only a few people talked about it in those days. His other important object of interest was building. From scratch, he renovated and built a place where to live. A small house, which was extended later on, a stable for goats, and a greenhouse, a cellar, and a sauna. For decades, I looked after our children and other nearest, my parents, Matti's mother, and grandchildren. There was a 3-year period when there were 4 generations of us living in our house. I supported my husband's writing. Taking care of animals and gardening were my responsibilities too. In my spare time, I could do some writing and painting. The walls in our house got covered with paintings as years went by. There are 19 paintings in my bedroom where I'm now. We were partially self-sufficient. We recycled, we used second-hand shops. Downshifting was something rare in those days. We were simplifying our life when others were living a materialistic life. But simple life and downshifting sure wasn't boring. Our village has been a very active one. In addition to everyone helping each other in all possible ways, we had campfires, outings, dancing lessons. We built a floating sauna and were bathing in it. We had a 2-week festival. We were acting, and we had all sorts of parties for all kinds of reasons. How was this kind of life possible? We financed our life first by selling Matti's flat in Helsinki, and with that money we lived for 2 years building living conditions for our family. We received small inheritances and had short part-time jobs. We had very little money for 40 years. At times we lived below poverty line. We once even had to explain to the taxation authorities why we had so little money, because they couldn't believe that we got by with so little money. Why is it important that we lived our life like we did? It seems to me that there are two ways of thinking how to make the world a better place. Some people think that the world can be a better place by making people good. I don't believe that. I believe that we are good enough, but we have to change the conditions which we live in. It's easier to lead a good life in favorable conditions than it is in bad and insecure conditions. I believe that every human being on this earth can do good if it's made possible for them to do so. And one way of allowing to do them this is to give them a basic income. We were lucky to be able to do what we thought and still think is the most important in life, to take care of one's family, to be together close to your loved ones. As our daughter once said, the best thing in my childhood was love and that there was never haste. It has been especially precious to have time to give care and love to our 47-year-old son because he has schizophrenia. He has been ill for 30 years now. With our support, he can now live independently in his flat nearby. As we have done so much ourselves, we have saved much of society's money. We have cared for our children and old parents. There has not been any need for institutional care like daycare or old people's homes. From the point of view from nature and climate, our life has also been good. All the most significant aspects of our life are not related to a materialistic way of living, but to a spiritual way of living, the relation to our nearest when living a simple and modest life. There are no limits to spiritual things in the world. They are not a burden to nature. Some people might think this kind of simple and modest life is not very fulfilling, but I think differently. I have the feeling as if I have been able to reach all the levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Today I live in the same little village in the same house. My daughter, who is a journalist, lives some 70 meters from me in a house that was built by her husband and her father, Matti. I'm old, but I can still help. I can help my daughter looking after her goats and chickens in the mornings. I can help my son to cope with his illness by seeing him as often as he wants. At the moment, I'm thinking of our black currants. They need picking. I wonder if the two sons of my daughter, if they will help me with that. I have been living my life with a good conscience, with the help of a basic income. Thank you for listening to the story of my life.